Welcome back, American Family Radio, Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. We are going to get to the phones, 866-300-9298, 9298. All the major indices right now are in negative territory. It looks like they are moving, trending even further downward. The Dow's down 51, NASDAQ's down, S&P is down, so everything in negative territory. I think there's some concern over retail stocks coming out with some bad numbers. And, and the reason nobody, it's not because they're worried about retail stocks in general. Well, I got a lot of retail stocks. What they're worried about is that's an indication of a declining consumer confidence. Now, we get a consumer sentiment number coming out of the Michigan, University of Michigan consumer confidence number. We get a look at that on Friday. So I guess we'll see what it looks like. But that would be the reason why people would be, or traders would be concerned in reference to retail stocks. People aren't spending money. Look, everybody knows that if we're not spending money, it's not good for the economy. So that could be some reason why we're starting to see this downtick as we see more retail numbers come out. So I would suspect that's got something to do with it. 866-300-9298, 866-300-9298. We were talking to Brian. Brian, I'm sorry, repeat your question again.
It wasn't really necessarily a
comment.
question. It was just more of a comment about Eric Cantor and the defunding. And, on August 9th, he had made that statement in an interview about how once they have 60 votes in the Senate, then he'd be willing to talk about defunding, which is complete cowardice. And I just want to, what you were talking about earlier, how we need to rally and we need to rise up and we need to support people and find candidates to run against these people. I called Eric Cantor's office this morning, and he is having town hall meetings. They haven't posted the schedule yet. But I just want to call, all your listeners to action, especially in his district, and get out to these town hall meetings and ask questions and ask him why he's not supporting this. And more importantly, we need to be involved with our local Tea Parties, and we need to find somebody to run against him, find somebody that can beat him, and get him out of there.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's what we got to do. And I know so many of us feel that way, and we've got to get out there now and work towards that end. And it's cowardice. It is. There's no courage. There's no conviction. There's no backbone. And it's typical response from Cantor that, look, they're worried about winning. Well, we can't win, so we're not going to do it. And I've been saying we got to stop worrying about winning and start worrying about fighting. We need to stand up for what we believe in, or maybe we don't believe in it. And if we don't believe in it, we got to get rid of it. I mean, get rid of them. I mean, that's fine. If you don't believe in it, then say you don't believe in it. But say that we're not going to vote because we're not going to win. Come on, give me a break. Let me go to Mike in Texas. Go ahead, Mike. Okay, let me go to, excuse me. Let me go to Mike in West Virginia. Hey, Michael.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
It seems to me that a lot of politicians are hiding how much they're increasing spending elsewhere by bragging and boasting about how much money they're keeping away from NASA.
Mm.
Do you think that could be the case?
Funny you should mention that, because I've got the quarterly, and I guess I'm the only one crazy enough to do this, spend time on it. I need to find other hobbies. But I actually went through the budget line by line of the monthly treasury statement for the month of July that just came out. And I actually went through the entire, every line item of the 35-page budget. I shouldn't call it a budget. Spending. The inflows, the outflows of every single line item. And it's very interesting to see how many line items have dramatically increased. And so many of them you can tie back to the ideology of Washington. So, one obscure kind of line item like NASA might go down, or national defense might go down, yet the Department of Education, the EPA, other items go up, and nobody ever talks about that. They talk about the one that's gone down. So when you go through this line item for line item, you begin to get very discouraged. And, that is just, that's been going on for years. I can't say that is something that this administration has been doing. That's not true. That's been going on for 30 years. They all do that. They talk about the good. Nobody talks about the bad. Meantime, the bad's getting totally out of control. And when you look at the U.S. Treasury numbers, line item by line item, and the highlights, and you look at the summaries and the highlights of what they've done year to date, fiscal year to date, and just in the month of July, you can talk about the deficit reductions, but I can find the deficit reduction, the annual deficit reduction, I can find it in like 4 items. There's hundreds and hundreds of items here. I can find it in 4 items. And, it is crazy that we're talking about this. If it wasn't for taxing the rich, if it wasn't for reinstituting the increase in Social Security tax that are coming out of our pay, if it wasn't for a couple and sequester, we'd still be at the same old deficit. We've got so much more work to do. It's incredible. And now I think I'm the only one, I guess, in America, because nobody on Capitol Hill has done it, that has gone through line item for line item through this report. Now, in order to go line item for line item, you would want to do that if you were actually wanting to create a budget. Nobody wants to create a budget. So I guess they don't have a need to do that. But, we're cutting, we've cut out entire organizations for all practical purposes. We haven't totally disbanded NASA, but certainly it's been, one of the greatest assets for NASA is what it can do for our national defense. I mean, it can have a dramatic impact on our national defense. And just keep in mind, everybody, you think, well, NASA doesn't mean anything. Let me just tell you something. When China has a shield around China as a result of their space power and what they're doing with lasers in space, and that regardless of them doing whatever they want to America, we're never going to be able to successfully attack them back. So where's all the power going to be? Economically and militarily. And in the meantime, somebody's going to sit around in Washington and say, oh, I guess we shouldn't have cut that program. Do you think? 866-300-9298. 866-300-9298. If you want to weigh in, if you got a financial question, if you're worried about your 401k, as you should be, your IRA. I talked yesterday about this coming crisis and re-looking at some of the numbers. And it was one of the reasons why I went through this monthly Treasury statement. And you can go through it, too, if you'd like. You can find it. I mean, I guess if you go to treasurydepartment.gov and find it, you can print it off. It's public knowledge. And take a look at it item for item. It's a little mind-boggling when you look at it. It's a little hard to follow, but for the most part, you can get an idea of the numbers. And when we look at these numbers, and I look at the deficits and the road that we're on, the fact of the matter is, you can talk about annual deficits all you want. The debt clock continues to click in the wrong direction. And as long as that happens, we're making no headway at all. What we need to see that clock reversing. And when we see that clock reversing, we will have a time for rejoicing, and we'll start to see some economic change in the economy. But until then, we can talk about 1 or 2 line items all we want. But the fact of the matter is, we're not doing what is necessary. And we've got liberals talking about those nasty conservatives that want to cut everybody's Social Security check. I talked to somebody yesterday that told me they were worried about their Social Security check. And they were in their 70s. And I said, you don't have to trust me. It's not going anywhere. we're worried about it. It's great that people want to put the fear of that in everybody's mind so that they can sell something or, whatever. But it's not going anywhere. We're still going to have Social Security. But, we continue to see those kinds of things happening because nobody wants to address the entitlement programs. And I don't consider Social Security an entitlement, but the mandatory spending side of the ledger. 866-300-9298. 866-300-9298. We don't have politicians that have the guts to do it. Oh, Paul Ryan, with his Pledge to America, sounded like he had the guts. What happened to his backbone? It's missing in action. Marco Rubio, where's his? What happened? Somehow they get to Washington for any longer than, a year or two, and it turns to jail. 866-300-9298. All the major indices in negative territory. The Dow's down 45. Let me go to Chris. Chris calling us from Alabama. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on? China and Russia.
Chris, I'm going to have to let you go, brother, or put you back on hold. See if we can't get a better connection there. You're breaking up on me. It's not good radio, not to mention I can't hear you. So we'll put you back on hold and try you in a few minutes. Hopefully you'll get to a better area. European stocks are relatively calm, which is pretty amazing since the Eurozone has announced that it looks like they're coming out of recession. It's been a long time. It's been over six quarters since that has happened. But it looks like they're coming out of recession, and I'm kind of surprised that their stock market is not acting a little bit more positive. It's interesting that they seem to care a lot more about what's going on in the American stock market as opposed to what's going on in their own economy. Now, I said this a long time ago. I'm going to stick to it. Although they've made some missteps, I'm going to stick to the statement. I said a long time ago, when the Eurozone comes out of the economy, I believe that if they can come out of this and regain a little bit of momentum and continue down the path that they are on right now, the path of austerity, which everybody has criticized, even themselves, they have said that it's not worked out the way they thought. They believe that the austerity is what put them back into recession. But if they can stick to it, now that they're coming out of the recession, and they can stick to sound fiscal policy among the corporations, banks, and such, if they can continue to do that, then I believe that in very short order, they're going to be the strongest economy. And I'm talking about the 17 euro nation bloc as an economy. I'm not talking about any individual country within that bloc. They are going to be the strongest economic power in the world, because they're going to have their act together, and they have been willing to learn from their mistakes, unlike the arrogance of the United States of America. Let me go to Mark in Indiana. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for my call. I had a quick question for you. I'm in my 40s, and back when I was a teenager, I bought a $20 gold coin for like $400 and bought some silver. So nothing big, but the question is, at this point, with obviously it's gone up from when I bought it years ago. Is it worth holding on to that, or is it better to go ahead and sell that at this point and just take that money?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? If you sell it, there will be a week or two when you're sorry you sold it, because, I mean, it's going to probably go back up. When there will be a month or two when it's tanked, that you were glad you sold it. So that's the volatility of precious metals. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Now, some 2 years ago, when silver went all the way up to over 50, I had bought I had some silver as an investment that I had bought on average at $13 an ounce. Well, on its way up, I sold it in the 40s. Even though there were some calling for it to be 60, because at some point in time, I bought it as an investor. I bought it for the reason to, hopefully it was going to appreciate and I would be able to sell it and make a little money. And so I sold it because I'm an investor. And the profit had just gotten so high, it made no sense to keep it. So in your case, you're probably in a similar situation. The profit has gotten so high from a percentage standpoint, that it makes no sense to keep it. And if you're an investor, if unless you're keeping it or holding it because you think the sky's falling and the gold and silver are going to save you, then I would sell it if you've got, a significant profit, which I suspect you do.
And is it best just to take that to, any particular, coin shop type of situation? Is that the best thing at this point? Or
yeah, I would, check that morning. I would check what the spot price is of both gold and silver. And I would go to just a small, if it's a small amount, I would go to a smaller coin dealer because you're likely to get a better price. And, you want to just, you don't want to, they're going to give you something under spot. There are some out there that will pay you spot price that day for your gold and silver. So I would check a couple different ones in your local area that day and see which one you get the best price for. But you shouldn't be paying more than, if you pay anything more than 15% or 20%, I'll say below spot, that's not a good deal. Thanks, Mark. I'm up against a break. I sure appreciate it. 866-300-9298. We'll be right back.